Hello and welcome to the Cynic Weekly. I am your host, Christopher Gallagher. It's Thursday, it's the 9th of April, 2026, and we're going to talk about Glasgow Celtic, coming to you from a very changeable, from a weather perspective, Cambuslang. Get a great panel. They're all changeably excellent. Don't really know what that means. Off to a bad start, maybe. Stuart Dugan, he's on the south side of Glasgow. How the hell are you?
I'm good, Chris. I'm changeable. I think we've established that for sure. And I'm looking forward to overreacting to the fixtures. No, that's every other piece of media that's been released this week.
Yes, absolutely. How people can react in such differing terms to some fixtures is beyond me. But we will also. So let's get involved. Christopher Boud is also on the south side of Glasgow. Boudy, how the hell are you, pal?
Yeah, well, I'm good. Looking forward to chatting about the glorious Glasgow Celtic as we march on to another triumph this season.
Good.
That's all the positivity going.
Yep. It's good. A bit of positivity be good to kind of as we head on into the big battle for the title. And also coming from Liverpool, coming to you live from Liverpool, it's our good friend Scott Fleming. Hello, Scott. How are you, sir?
I am not too bad. I booked a holiday a minute ago, so I'm reasonably excited about that. And that's only good news in this part of the world.
Can I just say, like, we had a wee bit before we started recording where it was just kind of getting ourselves in order. See, if I had booked a holiday, that's what I would have led with. Scott?
Yeah, what did I say? It was something shite, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. Where are you going?
I'm going to Dresden in the former East Germany, which I don't really know anything about, but my mates assured me that it's quite cool. So it's basically the last bit of Germany that I've not been to already. So I think we're flying in at Berlin and get a train there, but I have heard good things about it.
Great stuff, yeah, lovely, lovely part of the world. We're gonna before we kind of get into it. I just want to highlight that the Cynic are doing their first live show in a number of years. Tears of a Cynic. TIERS as in tears. The show will be attempting to rank the squad for this season into a variety of fun different tiers. We do it every year. We thought we'd do it live for this season. It's happening at the Flying Duck in Glasgow City Centre. It's happening on Sunday, May the 24th, which is the day after the Scottish Cup final. It's also a bank holiday weekend as well. So it could be it will be a lot of fun, but it could be a huge celebration if Celtic do the double, if they just even win the league. You know, even if we win the Scottish Cup, we could be celebrating that. Or we can have the chance for everyone to vent and get your anger out there. Audience participation, special guests. You can check out tickets. Tickets are almost all gone. So if you're holding back on tickets, I would get them as soon as possible. There's a link on our Twitter. There's a link on our Instagram. Even if you go into Google and you type the Cynic Live, it's the first hit, so you can get it that way. And if you're whatever you're listening to, whatever podcast your podcast post you're listening to, if you look into the episode description, there's a link to the live show, so check it out. Or you can edit it at thecynic.co if you want to ask us any questions about it. But as I say, tickets are almost all gone, so get involved. The Cynic Live, Chris Boud will be there, Stuart Dugan will be there, other special guests. Should be fantastic, so get involved. Great, that's all the sort of keeping. That's it.
Is the rumour true that Junior Adamu's going to be there?
Well, his face is on the poster, so
one to watch.
A
little Mbuka at that.
It's good. It's very good. We're going to talk about obviously all the news that's going to drop. The post-split fixtures is the kind of first port of call. I just want to get a quick thought on this, quick temperature on the opening question. Will how Celtic finish this season affect next season for the board in terms of how they're going to do business, how they're going to approach, or are they just going to approach it no matter what, whether Celtic win the league, whether Celtic don't win the league? Do you think there is a difference one way or the other? Stuart Dugan, your thoughts?
I think there probably is, to be honest. I don't think there will be a situation that allows there to be no sort of change at all structural, whether that's appointing a director of football or having some further clarity about the transfer business and how Celtic are planning on going about it, because I think it's quite universally unacceptable how it's been going for the last few windows, and that's even seeped into the more higher profile end of the mainstream media in Scotland when you think about how frequently Stephen McGowan and Chris Sutton are just dragging the Celtic board and the way that they conduct themselves through the mud. I do think, however, if Celtic do win the league, or if, all being well, if they manage to get a double, I think that certain people will probably be spared the indignity of having to fall on their sword for the loss, for the situation. And I think they'll be able to be like, look, we've all learned lessons here and we're going to move forward with X, Y and Z. Whereas if there's a situation where Celtic end up trophyless, end up third in the league, and if Rangers win and get Champions League money, I think that it's proper dereliction of duty, and I suspect that at least one or two heads might have to roll, because that is the consequence of the mismanagement of the club. Whereas if you do win the league and if you do win a cup, you can almost skirt by with like, we just about got away with it. But it's also very difficult to predict, because that's a set of directors and non-executive directors that have sat in situ for 20 odd years through. I think if you've lived through the COVID season, then you know that pretty much anything's possible there, where they can hang on and not be forced out. But I suspect it will reveal itself before the end of the season, because I think that the way that the fixtures have come out and just the nature of this title race means that there'll hopefully be more of an indication of what way it's going sooner rather than later. Yeah,
absolutely. Boud, what does your gut tell you in terms of next season, this season, how it falls out?
I don't trust the board. I don't trust them to do anything substantial, to be honest. I think the outcome will affect it in so much as, if they win the league, we'll see Operation Blame the Fans for all the trouble in full flow. If, we come third and don't win the cup, then there'll be a sacrificial lamb, but, that'll be the pitchman or something. It will be not necessarily one of the top guys. And, if it's somewhere in between, I think it's something less substantial. But ultimately it comes down to whether Dermot Desmond is suitably embarrassed by how the seasons went. But even then, he's been playing fantasy football with the club, so ultimately the blame lies with him. So I think there'll be a lot of just trying to put that blame elsewhere. And I've got no confidence that we'll see kind of substantive change that we need.
Yeah, Scott, what about yourself? What's your thoughts on it?
I think there's a wee bit of a kind of sliding scale with it. There's obviously going to be certain things that are just quite a lot of change, which is just going to have to happen, whether they like it or not, in terms of new manager, totally transformed squad, and so on. But I think it all depends on the league, really. You could argue, like, if we win the cup and we finish, a strong second, say we lose out the league on the last day, you could argue that that's not the worst possible scenario compared to what could have happened. I mean, even just a few weeks ago, we were all asking the question out loud, are we going to finish fourth? But even then, I think any scenario where we lose the league will be seen as a disaster, and rightly so, because we've lost it, once in the last 14 seasons or something like that, and we were in such a position of power, which we seem to have just frittered away. So I think that will necessitate a massive negative reaction from the fans and the media, and I think there will have to be some reaction to that from the board. But as Boud says, I suspect it will just be tinkering around the edges. It will just be like, Sean Maloney, you're no longer the Loans and Pathway manager, you're the director of football or something. It still probably will be very much a sort of in-house culture and just moving people around rather than totally ripping it out, root and branch, and getting competent, capable people in from abroad or from wherever they might come. So it's the same kind of horrible dilemma we've had all season, where the likeliest scenario that's going to lead to the change that the club probably needs long term is kind of apocalyptic. And of course, none of us are going to sit here and say that we want those things to happen. But in terms of a really meaningful change, which is going to future-proof the club, it might that might be the only thing which causes it to happen. And yeah, and I'm not going to pretend I know anything about this, but Kieran's touched on it a few times, hasn't he? The idea that changes to the club's worth on the stock market and so on, like that is the only thing which could really alarm the Desmonds. So that could be part of it too.
Do you want to come in on that, Stu?
Yeah, I just think that I was thinking about this during the week with the Champions League fixtures. So for anyone that watched the Bayern Munich game and who's been watching Bayern Munich in general this season, they are just absolutely incredible to watch. Like, you've got players like Michael Olise, who's slowly becoming the best player in the world before your eyes. And I think that there's a situation narratively for the Celtic board where I think we would all consensus agree that the pinnacle of this team, and also that the real starting point of the decline is that Bayern Munich game when you go a minute away from taking them to extra time. I think if they go on and win the Champions League and Celtic finish third, it's a really horrible bookend for the rapid decline where you see one team. I'm not suggesting that Celtic had it in them to go and win the Champions League, but just how close we were to beating such an excellent side on such a trajectory, to how far we would have fallen, that there are ways to look at this league campaign just now where it's so tight that if you lose on goal difference or you lose by a point, it's like, well, it's just been an extraordinary season, but it's only been an extraordinary season because we've declined so much to make it so competitive.
Yeah.
I just think that there are certain scenarios that could play out, even out with Scotland, that just make it look so much worse. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. But I think in that situation, it's a really obvious example of where they'll get hammered again for the decline. Quick point,
Michael Olise doesn't have a boot sponsorship.
Yeah, I saw the chat about that today. But apparently he wears some like vintage pair of boots. I don't know. He's great. He's a wonderful player.
He is a wonderful footballer. Right, okay. We're going to circle back round to the club and how the club's been run, and the fans' reaction and stuff. Obviously, the Green Brigade back as well. But I want to just focus on the post-split fixtures because I think that's one of the most important things that's happened this week. So let me just read out the fixtures. Celtic's fixtures. Celtic. Obviously, we have St Mirren at this weekend. Rangers are going to Falkirk, and Hearts have got Motherwell at home. Then obviously it's the Scottish Cup semi-finals the weekend after that. Then it's the split. So the first weekend of the split, Celtic are at home to Falkirk. It's the Edinburgh Derby, and Rangers have got Motherwell at home. The second round of fixtures are Celtic travel to Easter Road. Hearts have got Rangers, and that obviously is both fixtures for both of them. So that Hearts-Rangers game being the second game of the split is pretty huge. The third game in the row, Celtic versus Rangers at Celtic Park, and Hearts travel to Motherwell. All these games are really difficult, and within the context of this season, it's really incredible. Our fourth fixture, which is the midweek fixture before the last fixture of the week, is Celtic travelling to Motherwell. Rangers play Hibs at Ibrox, and Hearts have got Falkirk at Tynecastle. And then that last fixture, Celtic at home to Hearts on the last day of the season, and at the same time Rangers will be kicking off away to Falkirk. So Celtic, Falkirk at home, Hibs away, Rangers at home, Motherwell away, Hearts at home. Boud, fixture-wise, has it fallen well for us? What's your thoughts on it? Are you happy with it? That big, unbelievable fixture to end the season. It's something special.
Say it works out well for us. Falkirk and Hibs probably amongst the easiest, so you get that chance to hopefully get the points on the board. And I quite like, well, no, I was going to say I quite like getting to hopefully beat Hearts at home and celebrate it. But I mean, these fixtures were always going to be what they were. But I'm certainly happy that we'll get the chance to improve our form before we get into the tougher games.
Yeah, Scott, Falkirk at home, Hibs away, the first two opening fixtures. And it's the Hibs away one on the same weekend as Hearts Rangers at Tynecastle. It's all just chaotic, but in an exciting way. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's fallen pretty nicely for us. It's just, your average typical governmental body bias towards Celtic and Scottish football, which we always enjoy season in, season out, as Alan McCoist is acknowledged. I was really happy with it. Obviously, there are certain things that were always going to fall in our favour in terms of the 3 home games and the home games against Rangers and Hearts, but I think having these 2 home games next, either side of the split, could be really good for us, given how bad our away form is.
Yeah.
Don't want to take it for granted because Falkirk are a good side. Mirren seem to have perked up under a new manager, but really we should be winning both of those. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if both Rangers and Hearts drop points during that time, which allows us to go into the last 4 games in a really strong position. If we go top of the league with, say, 4 games to go, I think psychologically that's massive, because when was the last time we were top of the league? Have we been top of the league this season? It doesn't feel like it. So I like that. I like the fact that Rangers have had an extra away game dropped on their head, like a comedy anvil. And at a ground where they've already dropped points this season. And I like the way the Hearts fixtures have fallen as well, because if they're going to fall away, and I know we've been saying this all season, are they going to fall away? When are they going to, and they never have, and maybe they're not going to. But if they are going to fall away, then it could happen quite early. They could potentially drop points this weekend. I think they probably will drop points in the Edinburgh derby. We'll see what happens in the Rangers game. Don't even know what I want to happen there.
No.
But there is a scenario where they come to Celtic Park on the last day and they don't have that much to play for. Although psychologically, you could argue that could help them. Whereas if they were going there and they've got to beat us to win the league, they would maybe psychologically just melt. Like, if it's just a case of stopping us winning it, I think a Derek McInnes side would absolutely love that. So there's lots of different ways of looking at it, but I'm pretty happy. It's actually more than the Rangers and Hearts games. It's Motherwell and Hibs away that worries me, because every single away game has been such a slog recently. Obviously, we've already lost at Fir Park this season, but Hibs seem to be particularly good form at the moment. Like, some of the January signings are making an impact. So those I think we will drop points somewhere along the line, and that's probably where I would expect it to be at the moment.
Somehow, Stuart, Celtic have had by the end of the season, Celtic will have had 19 home games, and so will everyone else. So that seems fair, but is it fair?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting bias. All that stuff's mad, and I'd like to make an overarching point that I think speaks to this. That is, obviously everyone's very excited by the 3-way title race, and it really, it couldn't be closer. I think that the fact that we're 3 points behind, but do have more favourable fixtures. I said the other day that I think I would probably rather be in our position just now, where we're 3 points back, but we have home advantage in more games. And just the way the fixtures have fallen, I think that almost evens itself out to the point where I just don't think there's much between 3 really average teams. But I think, generally speaking, the Scottish media and the people that have now inhabited that space are not equipped to talk about this. Basically, and every week, hearing someone say, I don't need to hear Scott Allen or Andy Halliday or whoever with certainty say who the favourite is this week and where people are going to drop points and blah, blah, blah. And I think that it just means that every last little thing gets blown out of proportion in a very typically Scottish football kind of way. And I guess that is exciting for everyone, but it just means that there's so much drivel flying around day to day wherever anyone kind of consumes media. I'm sure that it's probably the same from us, but it's rife at the moment. The fact that, McCoist has made those comments on TalkSport is embarrassing. Even the gripes about Celtic playing first before Rangers, however many weekends out of the 5, but Celtic have played second more times already. So again, that's just evening itself out, and everything has worked out pretty evenly. And I was reading a thing today that obviously Ewan Cameron's also, he's prone to embarrassing himself, but his rant about Hearts not playing at home in the last game, it was like a mathematical anomaly. There was no other way that it could have been done where Hearts would be at home in the last game. So it's just one of these things, and it's mad when Derek McInnes has one of the most level-headed approaches to it, where he's like, well, the reason that you're even in this mix is that they have the chance to win the league. So that you would take that 100 times out of 100 at the start of the season. You would play anywhere. So it's all just sort of storm in a teacup nonsense. But I am pleased at how it's shaken out for Celtic. I'm pleased that we have the chance to potentially build a little bit of momentum, because I don't think Celtic have it in them to win 6 out of 6. But if you can win those next 3, that really goes some way to where you could draw that Glasgow derby, and you could possibly draw another game. You could drop points, potentially still have everything in your own hands to play when you go into that Hearts game. So I think it's going to be horrific to live through, but I suppose quite exciting.
Yeah, I've printed out the comments from McCoy's because I hadn't seen them or heard them, but I'd just seen the headlines about them. Gabby, you couldn't get a bet on them having a home fixture for the final home game of the season. And then Gabby Abgorn Lahore says, why does that always happen? And Alan McCoy replies, well, they are running the thing up here, aren't they? That's why. They are running the thing up here, aren't they?
The real reason is that Hearts are favourites to win the league, so they are anti-Fenian and want Celtic to have to host a Hearts title party. So,
well, they can fucking try. This is, they
can try and they can fail.
Do you know what? The measuring stick just changed. Okay, you're looking at it. Okay, buddy. They are absolutely. He just see. I don't listen to TalkSport. I'm not going to listen to TalkSport. I mean, it does annoy me that our manager is on TalkSport, because it's a very, you can just spout absolute non-factual stuff and no one pulls you up on it. There's no accountability. It's like the Celtic board. It's like a Celtic board meeting, I guess.
I guess the issue with that is employing a TalkSport pundit as your manager. I think that's maybe the bigger issue.
Yeah. Martin O'Neill was on TalkSport today, and he said, that's just the draw. Generally speaking, when I was manager here before, the Celtic versus Rangers game is one that's played relatively early in the proceedings. I think there is some sort of march taking place in Glasgow in the early parts of the split. Does he mean like an orange march? Is that cool? So the Rangers game fell into the middle. I think that's the reason, and subsequently the Hearts game falls into the last match. You wouldn't have to ask the SPFL. Yeah, I think, I'm happy with how it's kind of played out. That, it has been so bonkers, Scott. Looking at, the performance against Dundee didn't exactly fill us with confidence. But what out of those fixtures is the one that you're really not happy with, but one that you're confident about, and one that you're really worried about?
I would say confident about probably the Falkirk one to start. Although I have said it before, I do have a weird feeling that they kind of owe us a result this season, because we were really quite spawny to beat them 1-0 the way that we did in the league. And even the 2-0, we made hard work of it. We missed a few chances on the day, but at the same time, it's a game you should be winning all day at Celtic Park. They don't necessarily have a great amount to play for. I think they've got a wee outside chance of Europe, maybe, but they're quite far behind. So that's one I'd be most confident about. Least confident about, I think a lot depends on whether Motherwell are now just done, or whether they're going to rally again and ask who can still get a bit more out of them. If he can get them playing anything like they were playing a couple of months ago, then I would really be afraid of going to Fir Park. And actually, when I was trying to think about these post-split fixtures before it all came out yesterday, that was, I don't know if it was the same for you, as that was one of the scariest scenarios for me, was possibly going to Fir Park on the last day, just for obvious childhood mental scarring reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously, does it affect it, Stuart, the fact that it's in between Rangers and Hearts? It's the midweek game, it's the game on Wednesday, so you've got Rangers on the Sunday, and then you've got Motherwell on the Wednesday, and then it's the Hearts game on the Saturday. It's 3 huge fixtures. These are games you just have to win, but the fact that the Motherwell away game is midweek, would you prefer the home game there, or which of those?
I think that I would probably hope that excuse me, that generating some momentum into those games is enough that you just have this crazy week and you get yourself over the line in the way that we saw on paper that run of away fixtures around Stuttgart and 2 trips to Ibrox and Pataudry, and we sort of miraculously came through it essentially unscathed and then fucked it for the easy one at the end.
Yeah.
That if you can generate a bit of momentum, you would hope that with the good feeling that they'll hopefully be in the stadium on Saturday, that takes care of Saturday. And then the longer that you're delaying getting players back and up to speed, can you go into that last week with Callum Osman being an option to play 20, 30 minutes to give you a slightly more dynamic attack? Can you have Alistair Johnston back? Can you have Arnott Engels back up at full fitness to tackle your 3 hardest games or your 3 hardest fixtures? And I also think that by that point, if you're still in it and you have your 2 closest rivals to play, knowing that essentially they're cup finals and that if you win them, you could knock the other out or you could certainly severely damage them, can we sort of bolster this siege mentality? If you think about the atmosphere that you had at the sort of infamous 3-0 derby match, where that really was one of those we have to win this, and the whole stadium got behind it. And I know that there are other circumstances, that it was a night game and the novelty of that, but that Rangers team just wilted under the pressure and under the atmosphere, and it's possible that could happen again if we can make Celtic Park that kind of fortress that it hasn't been at all this season. And then just get through. You know, we've been scraping by. You just have to scrape by one more time against Motherwell. Maybe, as I say, you have some leeway that you don't have to win that game. But I think you want to be in a situation where I don't see Celtic coming back into it from a goal difference perspective. So you want to maybe have things in your own hands from a points perspective and not be looking for performance to get you over the line, because I don't think they were capable of that.
Yeah. Before we move on, Boud, there's a question from David. He says, with the release of the post-split fixtures and the scheduling of us versus Hearts on the last day, and given it's always been their policy to avoid title deciders, is this a tacit acknowledgement that Rangers fans have been, and always will be the problem?
Well, no, that's true, and yeah, I can't disagree with that. Yeah, they can't control themselves. They're like children, so very badly behaved children. But
or animals.
Well, I don't know.
You allowed to say that? I don't know.
You can't say it about animals, so
yeah. I'm not.
No, look, even when they win, they can't stop battering each other. So yeah, I think that's the big problem. We're the fun drunk. They're the angry drunk. As a fun angry drunk, I am an expert on the situation. I'm
not sure I would call you a fun angry drunk, Boud. Can I just say that?
Me.
We've had enough nights out. Do you know one of my favourite memes ever? And it was one of the first ones I remember really was, you remember in Manchester when Rangers were at their cup final and the big screen went out and they all went mental and they destroyed it. I remember seeing a meme on Facebook, and it was a picture, it was like a terrible Photoshop, and it was a picture of Chris Sutton holding the
power cord.
I still think about that because he's celebrating as he's doing it. Just a bit of fun, just a wee laugh. Positive news, real positive news. The Green Brigade will be back in Celtic Park on Saturday for the game against St Mirren. Here, there was a statement released by Celtic. I'll read their statement first. The club is pleased to confirm that a route has been found to lift the suspension of the Green Brigade with effect from Saturday's game against St Mirren. On March 27th, at a meeting of Glasgow City Council's Safety Advisory Group, the club again addressed the suspension on the Green Brigade. The SAG confirmed that it did not object to the suspension being lifted, subject to 3 conditions being satisfied. These were that all applicable, blah, 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 right? We communicated this to the Green Brigade and asked for their unconditional acceptance. They have today responded positively by accepting these conditions as outlined. Brian Wilson said, I am pleased we have reached the point where suspensions can be lifted with a group of Glasgow. What do you make of it, Stuart? Are you positive? Are you excited? Do you think it will make an impact? Do you think it will in fact be a catalyst for us?
I think it will make an impact, and I understand that, you know, the Green Brigade were in for some absolute dross performances this season anyway. But I think that what has been revealed about this Celtic side and the character of it is that they, you know how the whole line of thought where, you know, the players have to provide the crowd something to kind of get excited about. I don't think they're capable of that. I don't think they're capable of that level of self-motivation to get a whole sort of stadium rocking, and I do think that they really need to be bigged up and made to feel 10 feet tall at any point. And I think that the going is going to get tough over this next 6-game stretch, or at least the 4 home games where the atmosphere might be a factor. And I do think that, you know, having such a vocal, such an energetic element of the fan base there to maybe pick them up if they concede a goal, to maybe just spur them on when so many times we're knocking on the door. You saw it again at the weekend at Dens Park, where you're building pressure and then you don't score, and then we just sort of like slowly ebb out of games, and then inevitably the opposition score their one chance, so they get a penalty. I think it's going to be really important, and I think about players like Sebastian Tenetke and players that I just don't think have a top level mentality, that do really, really require to be physically lifted and crashing through the wall that they've put up in their own brain. So I think it could have a really big impact. I think just any semblance of harmony around the team and the fan base would be really, really good. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, like, the ban pretty much came in just after O'Neill's first home game. It was that Falkirk game, wasn't
around
it?
about that time, yeah.
So that's this whole last stretch where the feel-good sort of bounce that we'd got from O'Neill's first time hasn't really been there, or it's ebbed away very quickly with all that. So hopefully you can try and reignite some of that feeling that just gets you over the line, and gets you over the line just until someone else drops points. I think that's what this run-in's all about.
The Green Brigade North Curve on Twitter. Following a 5-month and 32-match suspension, Celtic have finally lifted the unjustified and unfair suspension of 250 supporters. While we are naturally pleased to be officially returning to Celtic matches, we will not forget the experience of recent months and the personal impact it's had on supporters. There remains deep structural and cultural concerns within the club which must be robustly addressed to avoid similar widespread supporter breakdowns which have plagued this season. It remains an expectation that all Celtic supporters must be treated fairly, proportionately and with respect by the club. There's a lot more in that statement, which is very, very good. Highlights what they think, recommendations, short term, medium term. But Scott, just as a supporter, just as, you know, being in the stadium, watching the game on TV, they are such an important part of the match day experience. It's just good to have them back.
Yeah, I think it's great news. I think if all of us as Celtic fans could have changed one thing between now and the end of the season, apart from the obvious, like somehow magically signing a competent striker in the free agent market or something, this is the one thing we would all change. And it's good that we've done it early enough that it could really make a difference with, was it four home league games that we come?
Yeah.
And you imagine a lot of those will be tight. Like, a lot of our games have been recently, particularly the Rangers and Hearts ones. So you're looking for every little differential that you can get. And I think that could certainly be one. So I was pleasantly surprised to see it, because I'd really got to the point where I just wasn't expecting it to happen anymore. I wasn't expecting them to get back in this season. You did the interview with Martin from the Green Brigade a couple of weeks ago, didn't you? And he certainly seemed very pessimistic about the chances of it. So I don't think anyone's under any illusion that, like, the issues between the club and the Green Brigade have just gone away. They clearly haven't, and you know, it will flare up again either in the summer or next season. But it's good that for now, at least, everyone's been able to sort of temporarily park it. And it should absolutely supercharge the atmosphere on match days, because I mean, you guys all go more regularly than me, but when I was up for the Stuttgart game, I just found it so weird. You know, there was a lot of chat from, like, especially a lot older fans and stuff, about how, like, the Green Brigade didn't invent chanting and stuff. Like, we done it before they came along, and we can do it after. And it's like, in theory you should be able to, but the problem is ultra culture is now so ingrained last 10-15 years that we're now all conditioned to have that body of fans in the ground who are basically conducting everyone else. So without it, it's like, singing still happens, but it happens in a weird sort of scattergun, piecemeal sort of a way, and it just doesn't build up any kind of momentum, and it doesn't allow you, like Stu says, you don't get the sort of forceful response that you should do if we get a setback in a game, whether it's a red card or a goal against us or whatever. So Yeah, I think it could potentially be exactly the boost that we need at this point.
Boud, just before we kind of move on, as you know, I've been speaking to Martin, and you know, they've got it done and they'll be in. But a lot of people, I've seen some people kind of giving Brian Wilson and the board a sort of like tap on the back, as if to say, well, they've let them back in, sort of thing. But they're the ones who banned them, and there was no due process either.
No, I mean, it's disgusting. And even if you find yourself asking, well, maybe, who knows what went on, Celtic collectively punished 250 fans.
Yeah.
So they are definitely in the wrong. No ifs, no buts, 100% Celtic are in the wrong. You don't just... You were standing or sitting in that area, you're punished irrespective of what you may or may not have done. A lot of nonsense. And also, frankly, you know, I think it's quite clear Celtic have been caught lying red-handed. Red-handed? That's not how you lie.
Yeah.
Unless they use sign language. But, yeah, they're at it. 32 games as well. When I seen that, I knew it'd been a while, but that is absolutely shocking. So, yeah, I can only imagine.
Long before that second spell, then?
Well, I think it's European games and Cup games as well.
Even that seems a lot. Like, O'Neill's not been back for 32 games.
No.
Yeah.
Aye.
That's strange. Anyway, 5 months is a long time.
It's a long
lot of games.
32 games. I'm led to believe, sure, it was 32 games ago. So,
So I think it's fantastic they're back. I think Stu's right in that to get really bouncing, you do need a little bit of inspiration from on the park, which we have very little of. However, I think it's one of those. I think it's almost a canister ready to blow with the rest of the fans in the stadium when the GB are back and singing. I think it will be full flow. I think we'll be send a shiver down the spine kind of stuff. So, delighted they're back for them, and selfishly for myself and the team as well.
yeah, absolutely. Looking at so this leads into the club in general, and I got an email this morning that says that the away kit is £20. Away kit, £20. This time last year, the third kit was still £50, which plays into the Not a Penny More campaign that the Celtic Collective have been promoting and, you know, pursuing for, you know, the wider support to do. Not a penny outside of your ticket for the match day game. It seems to be having an effect. It seems to be really having an impact. If you go to CelticFansCollective.com, they've got a whole big explanation about it. Really, really good kind of breakdown of what's been happening. And this leads to a new sort of campaign with that, which is, delay till final day. And it remains our firm belief that Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay should be removed from their positions and replaced with suitable professionals willing to stand up to the pressured, presumed authority of Dermot Desmond. With season ticket renewals to be released in the coming weeks, we are asking supporters to withhold their renewals until the final day possible. A simple way, Stuart, to make the case, but Not a Penny More really has been pretty effective with how cheap everything is now.
Yeah, I've got some bargains today. I think that if you want...
Yay, bit of fun.
No, I think it is really indicative that it's working. And, you know, we always said that was the way to get them, is to hit them in the pocket. And I know that not everyone will subscribe to that, as whether they're willing to do that or whether they're even able to, if they've got kids that they want certain kits, etc. I understand that. But it's clearly working, and I'd be curious to see what the actual X's and O's of it are. And I'm not sure that we will. Maybe when the accounts come round, if you see anything particularly noteworthy. But
they sent last time they put it all in one.
Yeah, they combined revenues to try
to sort of mask it a bit. But yeah, it's really good, and it is a good idea for, you know, they're not telling you to not renew your season book, but they're saying just wait and see what they're willing to do, because in the game of chicken, we Celtic fans do hold the power here, and it's important to remember that. And this summer, more than any other, for all that the next 6 weeks are going to be crazy with the combination of this league and this awful season, you know, the summer is just going to be even more mad with the level of structural change that's required, and just personnel turnover from contracts running down, players that are going back on loan, a new management team coming in, new coaches, everything. So I think that now more than ever they need to be held to account, and especially if we do get over the line and we win some silverware this year, in spite of how bad everything's been, you can't give them a pass and say, well, we got there in the end, so that's everything's fine. So it's a really, I think, reasonable way. What I would recommend is that everyone does read the statement, because when I saw that it was called delay till final day, I thought they were parking the protests until the end of the season because we're all going to get behind the team. And then I looked back on it, I was like, oh, right, yeah, that makes more sense. So give it a good read, guys, and get on board.
Yeah, check it out, Celtic Fans Collective. Just Google it, and the page comes up, and yeah, it's very interesting. Also today, I think within the last couple of hours, Willie Hawley has kind of spoken up about the Season Ticket Alliance a programme that he's kind of starting. So he announced a plan that would see him put £2 million into a fund for every 10,000 sign-ups amid bubbling tensions. So it's an alliance to try and get a fan on the board to hold more accountability. Here's a couple of quotes from him from today. We've been putting together, we've been putting things together behind the scenes for when we are going to launch. We're ready to launch it. We're going live on the April the 17th when people can apply. I can exclusively reveal tonight that Paul McStay, Celtic's greatest ever player in Chris Gallagher's opinion, will be the Celtic legend and ambassador who is fronting up the Season Ticket Alliance. I believe that we can set up the alliance as a conduit for discussions with the board. Then he goes on to say other bits. From everyone who joins, we're going to pick 5 trustees, and one of those trustees will be the chair. Until that point, Paul will be the chair and the spokesperson for the club. I won't name him, but a Celtic legend said to me the other day that Paul is the unluckiest footballer that's ever lived. I don't know why you'd say that. You don't really need to say that. You can just leave that out. We all know who Paul McStay is. He's one of the greatest players of all time. I'd like to say to any younger fans, go and check him out on YouTube. Again, it's fine, just Asher that. Or your mom. In terms of the board response, Hawley said, to be honest, in the weeks that I have been working here, there have been no home games, so I have not seen any of the board, but the board are aware that we are doing this. There has been no negativity from them, but just so we are quite clear, this is arm's length from the club. This will be exactly as we see it. So, Scott, it's something different. You know, Willie Hawley is someone who has been very close to the Celtic board, very close to the sort of, you know, a lot of the people on it. What's your take on it? What's your take on just the idea of it?
I have to admit, I've not really been across this. I didn't until you mentioned it. We were going to be talking about it today. It just strikes me as strange because, as you say, he's been very close to the board over the years. I'm sure at one of the recent games he was sitting in the director's box.
Yeah.
So the idea that he would be part of a body that would sort of be able to effectively petition the board about issues and hold them to account and stuff, my automatic response would be to be quite sceptical about that, and just quite sceptical about him as a figure involved in football at all after the influence he had at Queen's Park, where he's basically left them with a bit of a white elephant of a stadium which isn't fit for purpose at all. And by the sounds of it, he sort of stormed out and withdrew his financial backing because he was mentioned as one of the jokey answers in a quiz they were having at an event at the club. So it's the sort of thing. In theory, could it be a positive thing? Maybe, but his involvement does make me automatically sceptical. And also just at a time when we're all pushing for really meaningful change at the club, it seems like the kind of thing which is just sort of, like tinkering around the edges.
Yeah. Boud, he is part of the, as Scott said, he's had his experiences within football, and he is quite cosy up with the board as well. And the Paul McStay thing, obviously, people of our generation absolutely kind of in love with Paul McStay as a player, as a man. What's your instinct on it? Because we still don't have all the information about it, so we'll have to reserve judgment at this point. But what's your thoughts on it, just as the information that we know at the moment?
Hi, it's hard. I think we have lots of different ideas on how to change the club coming out now, and I don't know if it starts to dilute and pull, and can we have multiple organisations, if you want to call it that, all trying to make this change? Are they going to be as effective? It does. I mean, it seems practical. He's looking at putting his own money up, signing up season ticket holders. Good idea, although obviously I don't think we should be limiting any organising we do to just season ticket holders, fans all over the world.
Agreed.
And all over Scotland. But, it seems to me like it could do something very cheap, bringing in a Celtic legend like Paul McStay to win people over, but it works. I'm bought over. I love Paul McStay. I'm happy with that. I just googled him there. I've got Lord Willie Hoy straight away. You failed, mate. You failed. You've accepted a lordship. And as I say, whenever I've heard him talking about economics or poverty, doesn't tend to sound very nice. It sounds like a very rich Tory to me.
Yeah.
No disrespect. I don't know who he votes for, but not a fan of his work, but it might be one way that we can affect change at the club.
What about yourself, Stu? Obviously, as Boud said, there's avenues opening up all over the place for change, and it's almost like it has potential for dilution. But this seems like more of a mainstream one than anything else.
Yeah, I guess he's got the profile to make it more of a mainstream thing than, for example, the Collective would have, where they're sort of immediately up against that, where there might be more scepticism behind a movement like that. We've seen that with how many times that's been miscategorised as the Green Brigade or an offshoot of, etc., and quite dismissive of the other Celtic fans that are a part of it. I think that it's interesting. I don't know how effective that will be. I don't know if that's the right path, but it might just move the conversation on, where if this gets going, maybe this is the answer to getting some sort of fan representation. Maybe it's not, but maybe then the board come back with a different suggestion and you sort of meet in the middle. I think that it's very unlikely that having just asked for fan representation, the Celtic board will go, okay, that's fine, because it's not the way that they operate. It's not really in their best interest to welcome that. If they have some sort of financial incentive, maybe that would grease the wheels for them. I do think, as Boud sort of says, I'm pleased to hear that it's Paul McStay that's fronting it, because I think if you'd put, for example, I know he's managing, but if it had been like a Neil Lennon or even a Petrov or someone that has kind of, monetised their position as an ex-Celtic player in the Scottish mainstream media or through the club, I think you would start to look at it that they're not doing it for the right reasons. Whereas Paul McStay's always kind of been at a distance from the club, not through a lot of it's geographical, but it's quite a big deal when he comes around, and also for a particular type of fan of a generation who would maybe be cynical about the notion of someone coming in, having someone like Paul McStay who's universally respected, I think just gives it a layer of gravitas that someone else wouldn't. So I'll remain sceptical, I'll remain a bit cynical about it until further notice, but completely open to seeing where it goes and seeing if it's a positive move for the club. Yeah, absolutely. We'll obviously report on it and we'll talk through it when it's fully launched. But at this point, Paul McStay's a good start. Looking at, we've got some news. We got a question from Simon as well, but I want to get quick fire thoughts on some stuff. So on the Cynic this week, we've got a subscription service. You can sign up for a monthly fee, and you'll get about 32 podcasts per week. I keep saying per week every time. 32 podcasts per month, with lots of different themes running throughout. Some of them it's news podcasts, some of them stats and tactics podcasts, some of them we do sort of fun stuff, reaction podcasts, preview podcasts. So we have covered a lot. We did a reaction to the Dundee game, then we kind of broke
broke it down on the agenda on Monday. The agenda drops every Monday. It's the way to start your week. So we're not going to go over too much more from the Dundee game because it's been covered. But quickfire thoughts. Alistair Johnson, injured on international duty. Stuart Dugan, your quickfire thoughts about how frustrated or not you are by that.
Very frustrated, and I understand that it was a big thing for him to go and be a part of the squad because he's got an eye on the World Cup, and obviously the opportunity to do the ESPN media stuff I'm sure was great, but Celtic need to get better at remembering these players are assets, and unfortunately if you have to toe a hard line and say club's not letting you go, mate, sorry, you can go for the next camp before the World Cup, but it's really important that we know what your workload is, how it's being managed, that you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing. And there's countless other examples of that, from Kasper Schmeichel to the litany of injury issues that we've had, that I just think that it's an area that we need to improve upon in this great big rebuild. So I don't think it's something that Johnson would have really put his foot down on. I think it's something that would have meant a lot to him, but I think he's smart enough and savvy enough that he would understand the stakes at this time of season, and if it costs him game time before the international break, maybe he won't make the World Cup, so it's probably been quite costly for him.
Yeah, there was a kind of update today. I saw a headline. This is how these headlines work, but it was like Alistair Johnson gives update on his return timetable. He just talks about Canada. Excuse me. If you look at a silver lining, there's a chance that we'll all be back and fresh for the World Cup. And then he just doesn't give any update, but saying something like we'll hopefully be all back for the World Cup, excuse me, it's a bit of a worry. Boud, your quickfire thoughts on Martin O'Neill potentially being involved next season in some capacity. There was Martin O'Neill and Mark Fotheringham were down at Preston North End versus QPR. Apparently they were looking at the goalkeeper. I guess we discussed on the agenda on Monday about if he's doing that, if they're doing that, it feels like they might have some involvement in next season going ahead. Your quickfire thoughts on that?
Mixed. Yes, I would like just the whole sweep it all away, brand new, top to bottom, gut the club, spend money, make some decisions about the structure of the club. But Martin O'Neill, I love him. It's like Paul McStay. Also, when you're looking at this season, as much as the performances have not been inspiring, results under Martin O'Neill have blown away both Brendan Rodgers and Nancy. So, having him there in some capacity next season, if Martin O'Neill still feels he's got something to contribute, that's great, as long as it's not being used to prevent real actual change at the club.
Great stuff. And Scott, finally for yourself, quickfire thoughts. Couple of names that have been linked to potential signing. Miguel Chaiwa from Hibs, John McCracken from Dundee, guys who are, they're based in the Scottish Premiership. What's your kind of take on that? Do you think that potentially we are going to change how we approach with recruitment?
Yeah, I think it might just partially be that we've got such a titanic rebuild facing us in the summer that we know, like, not all of those new names that we're bringing in are necessarily going to be kind of exotic names from abroad that get people really excited. You are going to have to have some guys who are just there to do a job and don't necessarily cost a lot of money. So that would maybe be why we're looking at it. Chaiwa certainly played well when Hibs beat us at Celtic Park not too long ago. I've got a mate who's a Hibs fan who says that over the season as a whole, he actually hasn't been all that great. But for the amount of money involved, maybe it'd be worth a pop. The McCracken one just confuses me because I've never once really seen him have a good game, including on Sunday where he kind of dived before Chavara had even shot, and of course Travan Chara still managed to miss it anyway. But yeah, I also find it strange that as bad as the Scotland goalkeeping situation has been the last couple of years, he's still not got a look in. I think he got called up to the squad once, but he didn't get a cap, unlike the modern day legend that is Ross Doohan, who's already on the books. So I don't even know what the thinking would be behind that signing. Would it be Schmeichel leaves, Sinisal's number one, he's your number two, because we wouldn't trust Doohan to be your number two. I don't know. But I don't see the point in it. I don't rate him. It's quite simply.
Quickfire thoughts? A new feature we might bring in. All good. So before we kind of finish off by looking at the St Mirren game, we do have a question from Simon. It's quite a fun question. So, ranking system. Regardless of position, who are our 10 best outfield players? So, currently at the club, you can interpret that however you want, but essentially what I'm looking for is a ranking from, we'll go 10 to 1. I think that's probably better, and we'll just go one at a time and just see what you've got. And I'll take a note of them, just see who the people are that kind of make it all. Stuart Dugan, yeah, you're right. Let's go 10 to 1 from you.
Can I just say this was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, and it's the most sad I've ever been
Oh my
at
god!
anything.
My god!
So 10 to 1. I literally can't believe that I'm about to say this, but Yang makes the top 10 best outfield players.
Okay,
in my list.
That's fine.
Benjamin Nygren.
Is it
number 9?
Number 9?
Yeah, we're going back the way.
Yeah, it's quite low. He scored like 19 goals last season.
Yeah, but so the way that I've approached this, I've included players that are injured, and I've included just generally how good I think they are. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, parameters.
Number 8, Alistair Johnston.
Okay.
Number 7, Dyson Maeda, because whilst he's been really poor, he still offers just something. I've put Arnott Engels next, which I think some people might balk at, but I think that when Arnott Engels is good, the quality that he has with set pieces, and when he's good, he's really good. And I do think he's got a higher ceiling than we see as well. Then I've put Kieran Tierney.
Number 5.
That's number 5. Rail Hitati, when he fancies it, when he plays, if he plays.
Are you okay? You genuinely sound quite sad.
It's so bad. Cameron Carter-Vickers, he was rubbish when he played this season, but he's by a distance the best centre-half we have. Callum McGregor, he's washed, but he's the second best player at the club. And then in the mystery box, I've just got Jota, just because the Jota I remember is easily the best player at that club and the most likeable, and what I would give to just see if he's still got it or if he'll ever have it again. That's it. And I've got some notable mentions where I basically prepared 15 just because I thought there would be some controversy. So 11 to 15, I've got Arojo, Oxlade-Chamberlain, just from a quality, but he does good keepy ups, good finisher. Taneki, when he fancies it, Kalechi, and Austin Trusty. That's a really bad list of players, man. That's a really bad list of players.
Delivered wonderfully. Let's go to Christopher Boud. I'm looking for your 10s to 1s.
Yeah, sorry, I'm scrambling here. I just did a list of 10 players. I did not order them in any way, shape, or form.
So did that.
That was the brief.
Well, it's not in the question. It's not on the question. Who are our 10 best outfield players? That does not mention list or rank.
It did in the WhatsApp group.
Don't pay attention to that shit. I'll start with memorable. Honourable mention.
Okay, all right, hurry up.
So Jota, who is the best player, but he hasn't played this season, so I just thought I'm not going to stick him in. I'd be cheating a wee bit. Number 10.
He's sent it to your face, Stuart, as well.
Your number 1 is my number 11, Stuart. How do you like them apples?
Those apples are fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Number 10.
My ranking here I've confused. I've kind of did partly how they played this season and kind of did if they're just generally good. Rio Hitati is number 10.
Jesus.
His form has been a little bit off, but he is fantastic. Number 9 is that guy, Yang. He's won a place in our heart because so many people are terrible, purely.
Yep.
Number 8 is Dyson Maeda. I love him.
That's low for you. Season. I thought he'd been in the top 5.
I'm an honest guy.
Fair
That's
enough.
what they call me, Honest Chris. That's my name.
No one's called you that before.
Wear it out. Number 7, Callum Osmond. What a guy. He would be number 1 if he had just a couple more minutes. Just a couple more. Number 6, Callum McGregor, the captain. Fantastic, obviously. Benjamin Nygren, number 5. let's be honest, he's not very good, but he has scored an incredible amount of goals. So what can you say? Fantastic. We wouldn't even be asking about if we're in the title role if he wasn't there. So in the title race, even not role. Number 4, Alistair Johnson. Just gear that with the Canada stuff, please. Number 3, Sriracha. Number 2, Tierney, and number 1, Arajo.
Number 1 of that, okay, fair enough.
He's been the best, and it's kind of worrying that all of those top players are defenders, but that's where we are.
All of them are left backs.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well,
sort of forgot about Sriracha. I would have him in my
Sure,
top
I was going to say, I thought you were a big Sriracha guy.
I love Sriracha.
Yeah, well.
Fair play. Sorry.
Yep, Scott, let's go. Number 10, hit me.
Yeah, sorry, I also haven't prepared this properly and done it in numerical order. So this is going to be a bit like when Michael Owen was doing his top 10 favourite Christmas dinner ingredients on TikTok. fucking shambles. I'm going to put the injured players at the bottom of the list, I think, if that makes sense. So
okay.
I'll put CCV at 10 because he's probably still our best centre back, but let's face it, he looked pretty much finished earlier this season. I'll put AJ 9. I'll put Jota 8. And beyond that, I'm going to throw Sriracha in just because, I mean, it feels weird, including our backup left back and the top 10 players at the club, but every time he's on the pitch for us, he does a job, and there's just something about him. He's cool as fuck. He's handsome, you know.
We're in.
Number 6, I'm going to say Negrin, because everything he does, apart from scoring really important goals, is kind of shit. Yang, number 5, I think. Engels, number 4. Hatate, number 3. Dyson, number 2. Fuck, I've just realised I put Jota at like 8, and my original plan was to put him at number 1. Which means number 1 is Kieran Tierney.
That's all right, yeah.
Was Cal McGregor not in top 10?
No.
Fair.
No. I did. I know I've just like rattled it all out in a very confused manner, but I did think about it a bit this afternoon, and I genuinely, as things stand, don't think he's amongst the top 10 players at the club.
The only player who got into everyone's top 5 is Kieran Tierney. Interesting. Good we exercise. Depressing exercise. Stu, are you okay?
I hated it, mate. I hated it. And I actually hate the fact that I've botched it on top of how bleak the list is, that I've missed out someone that I do rate. That's annoyed me.
Just thank Simon for it. Thanks, Simon. Remember Simon and the Witch?
No.
You don't remember Simon and the Witch?
Is it a CBBC one? Or?
Yeah, it was CBBC, yeah.
That's ringing a bell.
Don't know what you're talking about, mate.
Boud, do you remember Simon and the Witch?
Is that Teabag, or is that a separate Witch-related programme?
Teabag is CITV, or yeah. Simon and the Witch, really good intro music.
Simon and the Witch, witching about. Is that the song?
No, it's not. Mike, I hate that. I hated that so much I might cut it out. Celtic take on St Mirren. So we'll just finish by kind of getting brief thoughts. I think we'll focus this week on one position, and that one position is who you would start as striker. Kelechi Iheanacho came off the bench and scored a really, really good goal. Shvanshara had a lot of issues. We've discussed that this week. So we take on St Mirren. St Mirren have a new manager. It's funny how badly Robinson's doing at Aberdeen, by the way, just as an aside. Absolutely fucking hilarious. But just give me your thoughts on the game and who you think would start in the 9 position. Chris Boud, let's start with yourself. You'll be at the game. No, you're working this week, so you're missing it. But yes. Talk us through your thoughts on the game, expectations, and who your number 9 would be.
It's going to be tough. As you say, St Mirren are coming into a bit of form. They're a team that can play historically, and we need to. Is there any point even saying we need to kick on? This needs to be the game.
Nah,
but it would be good if we showed something. If the fans got to see a bit of something, I got to kind of just even boost our confidence going into obviously the split, because that's when the games get dicier and harder. We get a bit of challenge, so it'd be good to get some confidence in the legs. That's what I'm going to say. It's a phrase. It makes sense.
It's not a phrase.
It's 100% a phrase. It is now. Up top, assuming Osmond isn't fit, I think I would go with. I'd give Iheanacho a chance. I don't think he'll be able to play for 60 minutes, but give him a go. Why not?
You would start him then, yeah.
Aye, why not? Probably best to bring him on as a sub, but start him. Let's see what he can do.
See Boud saying there, why not? That kind of sums up this whole season. Stuart Dugan, thoughts on the game? Your number 9, who would it be?
So I haven't really. I know that they've had an uptick in form, but am I right in thinking that they're sort of playing a bit differently? They're not quite as physical and hoofbally as they once have
Apparently,
been.
but when I saw the highlights from Sportscene of the Aberdeen game, like every chance they had, and they did have quite a lot of chances, it was still hoofball. So it's like maybe in between the chances they're knocking it about a bit, but that still seems to be their main route to goal.
Yeah.
They've won their last 2 games.
Right. Well, I think that I said it last week. I'm not going to, and it bore out pretty much as we'd said, that I'm just not going to go into a single game from here on in like confident that we're going to get a result. And I understand that everything's in our favour, and I think the vibes are going to be great, and the stadium, the atmosphere will be good. But I just can't be confident about that Celtic side currently winning comfortably against anyone. But I would start with Kelechi. I think that the general kind of business model moving forwards has to be start Iheanacho, Maeda out left, Yang out right, and then at 60 minutes move Maeda into the centre and bring in Tanetki, where you hopefully get the best out of Tanetki coming on as a sub. You hopefully get a different look for the defenders with Maeda through the middle. And I would just do that because I think that Kelechi Iheanacho is just much, much, much better as a clinical finisher. And if he can link the play, then I just think there's a higher likelihood of finishing some chances if you can sort of generate momentum. I felt like the big difference at the weekend is that we pressed a lot better than we have done. And I know that there might be some limitations with him from a fitness perspective. When he did have that like 20-25 minutes, he pressed like mad, and I thought his work rate was tremendous towards the end of the game. I know he might not be able to offer that over an hour period, but I think that's the best that you have, because Tranchara was absolutely dreadful and there aren't any other options, so it has to be what it has to be.
Yeah. Scott, yourself, just to finish off, thoughts on St Mirren? As we say, they've won their last 2 games in a row. They have been playing a different style, still quite rugged and physical, but from what I'm led to believe, I've not seen a lot of them recently. We will cover this more on the Launch Club tomorrow, but they seem to be playing a little bit more football. Your thoughts and your number 9?
Yeah, it's a Saturday 3 o'clock, isn't it? Which feels like we've not had a lot of them recently, so that's nice for a start. Also, just the opportunity to put a bit of pressure on Rangers heading into the Falkirk game. Will be interesting to see what they're like stylistically and whether the new guy, the young manager, has managed to sort of blend those 2 styles. And obviously it's a little bit of a dry rehearsal for him as well, heading up into the Cup semi-final in a couple of weeks' time. But confident-ish about it, and striker-wise, I've generally been on Dyson as the best striker at the club bus for a while now, despite him not scoring for 3.5 months or whatever it is. But I do feel like you almost have to give Iheanacho that chance of nailing down the position. And maybe he won't. I think you touched on it in the agenda the other day. Sunday was kind of indicative of where we've been at with the strikers for a while. Like, one of them will be shite from the start. One of them comes off the bench and you're like, oh, he's the solution because he looks a bit bright or he'll score a goal or whatever. You put him in from the start next week and he's shite again. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if it does pan out that way, but I still think you do need to give Iheanacho that opportunity because unlike all the others, he looks like if you give him a chance in and around the box, he probably will stick it away.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with all of you. I think you probably go with Iheanacho because he probably looks the most natural goal scorer, the most natural finisher. And if we can, there's a part of me that thinks if you start really well on Saturday and you get an early goal, I think it becomes an easier game to manage, as opposed to chasing a goal or trying to confirm, the 3 points late on. So I would probably start him probably just the first half, and then we'll see where we can go from there. But it's an opportunity. These players have got an opportunity. Everyone's been criticising them. We've been criticising them heavily. They've got an opportunity to show that they're actually better than people are giving them credit for. So let's hope they take that and they run with it. On the Cynic, we had the agenda on Monday, Tuesday with the debrief, Wednesday with the Celtic Women's Football Show. You're listening to the weekly. Tomorrow we've got the Lunch Club. Will be recorded in person. Myself, Paul Carlin, and our good friend Colin Kearney. On Saturday we'll have a reaction to the St Mirren game. Hopefully it's a positive one, and then we'll be back next week. Got the live show, check it out, link in the episode description, and you can go back and listen at the beginning, all those options. Instagram, Twitter, get involved. Tickets are selling fast. But yeah, we'll be back next week, looking ahead to the Scottish Cup semi-final against St Mirren again. So, bit of deja vu. But Stuart Dugan, a pleasure, a joy as always. Speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Pleasure as always.
Great stuff. Christopher Boud, we'll speak to you again soon, Boud.
Well, yes, to the Green Brigade being back. Get in.
Great stuff. And Scott, a joy. Speak to you again.
Aye, thanks for having me. Sorry for not reading the running order correctly.
You will be fined 12 Cynic bucks for that. From Stuart Dugan, from Chris Boud, from Scott Fleming, and from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly, and we'll speak to you down the road.